All right. So, welcome to day one of our mini Olive. Today, we are going to do an overview of the exam and um, work on the reading section. So, let me just get my screen set up. So, I've got the chat there. Improve my English. Fantastic. Well, you're in the right place for all of this. Brilliant. We've got a couple of people who've taken the exam before. So I'll expect you to help me out. Once again, if you haven't done it yet, if you've taken the exam before, put in a 1. If you've not taken the exam before, put a 0 in the chat. As many of those, if I can get everybody to answer, that would be awesome. Great. If you haven't done it yet, please do. Thank you. Great. So, to day one. So, we're going to look at the overview and how to prepare for the exam. And this is a rough idea of what we're going to be doing. I'm sorry, I've got the wrong dates on here. So we're going to do the overview and reading exam techniques. Next week, we will be working on the listening exam and taking a look at the writing exam. We're going to use some listening tools in the future to look at ways of describing data as well. Now we've got 4 days, so we've got an extra one. So we're going to take some extra time on task 1 and 2 of the writing exam. And then our final day, we will do work on the speaking exam as well. So I have a lot of resources here. You will get a PDF in the email. You will get a PDF of this of the slides from this class as well. Sorry. Okay. So lots of possibles. There's a really good one on YouTube that I will show you. There's some practice resources that I have in a folder for you, some practice exams to use. There's some great places to read English that are developmental, really helpful, and also for listening. So all of these resources, this resource page will be, of course, in the PDF when we get there. So let's look at the format. So there are 2 kinds of IELTS exams. We are focusing on the academic one. They are very, very similar. There's only a little bit of difference in what's demanded between them. They all start with the listening exam, and that is the same for both the academic and general training. The number of questions you need to get right, that is the part that changes between these 2. In the reading, the academic reading are academic articles, not anything with a specialist vocabulary, all written for general knowledge students. Okay. In the general training reading, it's more advertisements, things that business documents, and that sort of thing. The academic writing is 2 essays, one very short, specifically describing data, and the second one presenting an opinion and supporting it. In the general training, it's more like emails and an essay. The speaking exam is the same for both exams. This will be done separately. When you take the exam, you will have a concentrated time, 3 hours, that will be the listening, the reading, the writing, in that order as a block. So brace yourself, have a good breakfast, and take a bottle of water with no label on the bottle so that you've got something to drink. You can't take anything in that's got writing on it. Um, some places will let you bring in your own blank paper. Go with pencils and blank paper. If they don't allow you to bring in the blank paper that you have brought with you, you can ask for them to supply you with some, and they will. This is very important later in the exam, and you'll see, especially in the writing portion of the exam. It's vital. Even if you're taking it on a computer, it's vital to have a piece of paper to make some notes so that you know what you're doing before you start typing. The speaking will be scheduled possibly on the same day, possibly on a day before or after. And that is a one-on-one personal interview with an examiner. And later on, I'll explain to you how the examiner is really your advocate in that exam. And you can, if you perceive them that way, then you can use it. It will change the way you listen to them. It will change what you do and raise your marks every time. So, right, these are how the band scores are described. All right, so this is, no one goes in, no one takes the exam as a band one. The lowest anyone ever starts at is band two. And that's words and phrases, but not necessarily full sentences or more. So most of us will be looking for band 5 to 7, right? So this is really our area here. So, and that you will see corresponds with the CEFR, the Central European Framework. Right. Oh, let's mute. And so that will correspond with from B1 to C1 in the CEFR. So if you've taken an exam or you've worked with an English language book at a particular level, you will know roughly where you are, and that will give you a rough idea of where your IELTS will be. This, if you have taken an exam for B2 and passed it, that does not mean that you can just walk into the IELTS and get that 6.5. All right. There are techniques that are specific to this exam, and that's what I'm here to help you get through so that your English level can shine in the exam. And that's the most important. So there's our target. Let's look. The scores are calculated by within each section, and then you get an overall average. So they do use simple averaging to come up with the numbers. So the overall band score is calculated by taking the mean result for all 4 parts of the test, and it's calculated to the nearest whole or half band. Scores ending in 0.25 are rounded up to the next half band level. And scores ending in 0.75 are rounded up to the next whole band level. So if you get 6.25, you get a 6.5. If the maths comes out at 6.25, your mark will be a 6.5. If your band score averages out to 5.75, you will get a 6. That's how it's calculated. And the parts of each exam for the writing and the speaking are averaged together as well to give you that particular band score. So, right. This test is different from any other test you have ever taken. Those of you who've taken it before, do you agree? Did you ever have a test like this in anything else that you've ever studied? In most of our studies, there are things that we must learn, and then we must remember them and use them in the exam. This is completely different. This is purely how can you communicate? Can you understand what you read? Can you understand what you hear? Can you hear the details? Can you find those things? There's no body of knowledge that you can memorize to make this happen. You have to work on the skills. All right. So those are our receptive skills, listening and reading. And now communication, the other half. Can you express yourself? Can you communicate so that other people can understand what you are trying to say? Now, there are actually these are actually measured on the exam. In the writing exam, you can get things wrong. You can mess up your grammar, but if they can still understand what you are saying, if it does not, um, if it does not make it difficult to understand, if they can still read it and make sense of it, then it doesn't count against you in the same way. Obviously, the more accurate sentences you can write, the better. But even at level 8, you can still make mistakes so long as they're not repeated, and certainly so long as they don't obscure your meaning, and so long as they can understand you. And this is also true of speaking. Even if you get an idiom wrong, you still get the marks. All right. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. Now, the key to this whole exam, because there's nothing we can memorize, right? There's nothing we can do to get here. If you memorize word lists, oof, that's okay. But if you don't know how to use those words, they won't help you. They'll actually count against you. So make sure that the words you learn in context. That's why I give you the resources I do for reading and for listening. Because if you learn those words in context, you learn with them the grammar structures that you heard them in. And that's vital. So the key to all of this is to listen to the questions, to read the questions. So in the listening exam, the questions will tell you what are you listening for. So you could listen to a tape 6 times over. If you read the questions after, you won't have focused in your listening on the part you needed because you didn't know what it was. It's those questions that give you the power to answer and to hear the correct answer. In the reading as well, the questions tell you what the document is about and what and why you are reading it. In the writing, you will be presented with a question to answer. Understanding that question, the act of actually understanding fully that question, is 1/4 of your mark. There are 4 marks in reading, in the writing, and understanding the question is 1. Writing in an orderly fashion is the 2nd, and only then do we get to vocabulary and grammar. All right. So the questions are the key. And in speaking, the examiner is going to use those questions to guide you into more really expressing your level of vocabulary and grammar and stretching yourself. That's their job. And the questions are how they do their job. Okay. So hopefully I've convinced you now to focus on the questions. So let's get to the details. So the reading test is 60 minutes. You write your question, your answers directly on the answer sheet or on the computer screen, depending. There are 3 documents. They are academic, but for general use. And there are 3 sections to the exam. They are written for non-specialist audiences. They can range from science to the environment to social history or business. They could be anything. They may contain nonverbal materials such as diagrams as well. There is not enough time to read the documents. I cannot sit down, read those 3 documents, and then start reading the questions and make it through the exam in time. It doesn't work that way. So today we are going to practice reading the questions first and seeing how that helps us. All right. So we're going to read the questions first. So you will need to read for a general understanding of the topic. You may be asked about the main ideas. You may be asked about specific details, dates, or distances, or things like that inside those questions. You will be asked to understand inferences and implied meanings, and recognize writers' opinions and attitudes and purpose. So the questions will guide you on what to read and how to read it. Okay. The listening test. I didn't spend much time on that. Yeah, it's only 60 minutes. We're going to do more on the reading test next. So the listening test is 30 minutes long, plus 10 minutes transfer time if you are working on a paper exam. There is no transfer time in the computer exam. So there are 40 questions in 4 sections. The first is a conversation between 2 people, someone ringing up to find out about language classes or what's available at the local sports center or library, that kind of thing. The second is a monologue, so it might be someone from a resort telling you what activities are available, or someone giving a tour to something. So lots of ideas like that. The third section is a conversation between up to 4 people, usually 2 or 3, talking about a homework assignment or possibly talking with a professor as well, or a lecturer. And then the 4th section is simply an academic lecture. Once again, general language aimed at a novice or general audience, no specialist language used. So you'll be asked to listen for detail, listen for ideas, and there we go, recognize opinions. The questions are, again, the most important part. They tell you what you're listening for. So let's look at the writing test. Again, if you've got any questions on any of this, please do put them in the chat. I'm very happy to stop and answer anything you need. So the writing test is 60 minutes long, and there are 2 tasks. The first one is 150 words, and the second 250 words. Now, most of my students look at those numbers and go, oh my God, I must get my pencil on the paper immediately. I have to start typing or I'll never make it all the way to that many words. I will be showing you in our exercises how easy it is to get there if you do a little planning before you put your pen to paper. That's the key. It's what you do before you start writing that will get your marks on this exam. So task 1, we take 20 minutes. You will have a visualization of data. So it might be a graph, a chart, a diagram. They've been doing a lot of maps lately, even room layouts or floor plans, that sort of thing. It can be anything. You will be asked to describe the differences between them, or you'll be asked to describe the data as it is presented. Once again, planning it at the beginning is what will make it perfect, and you'll get the highest marks that way. So that is purely about describing data. You're not asked to make any opinions or anything of the sort about that. So we save the opinions for task 2. There you'll be given a statement like, and you'll be asked whether you agree or disagree with it. Maybe it's 2 different points of view to compare. All right. And then you'll be asked to present an opinion, which you'll do at the beginning, and support that opinion throughout while you discuss one or both sides of the topic, depending on the way the question is written. These are expected to be written in a formal style, extra points for passive voice. So it should be formal and academic in nature. So it is marked on content. Did you understand the question? All right, that's a quarter of the mark. So you get a mark for each of these. So content, did you understand the question? Organization of ideas. Is there a logical progression in your writing? And then vocabulary and grammar. Can you write compound complex sentences and use a range of tenses accurately? And do you have the words, sufficient words, to talk about a topic that may be new to you? Okay. So 4 criterion, those first 2, content and organization of ideas, those are the first 5 minutes before you start writing. If you skip those 5 minutes and go straight to the writing, you have the chance to lose half your marks. All right. You're endangering half your marks. That time that you take at the beginning to think it through and give it an order, that's going to be your key to really raising your marks on this exam. All right. So the speaking test, right? It's a face-to-face interview. It is recorded because you will have 2 examiners on both the writing. 2 people will read your writing and mark it, and 2 people will view your speaking. You'll have the main examiner for your speaking test, and another person will view that recorded test. Understand the topic quickly. In the writing, that's a great question. This is what the first thing you do is we're going to practice analyzing the questions. Okay. So, well, for the way you understand the topic quickly in the writing is by practicing analyzing the questions. So I've got a lot of possible questions to write on in that essay from past exams. The more of those that you look at and you go, okay, in this question, these are the main points. This is how I'm going to structure it. And these are the details I'm going to use to support my idea. The more times you do that, the faster you will be. Because then you'll go in, you'll see that question and say, I know exactly what to do. All right. Right. So let's carry on the speaking test. Right. So face-to-face interview, it starts with an introduction. Basically, the test goes from very personal to very public. All right. So you're going to be moving from language to talk about yourself, your day-to-day life. What do you have for breakfast? What do you do in the morning? Little questions like that. And then the second part, you'll be handed a task card and it will be a topic, something like, what was a film that you saw as a child? With some suggestions of what to talk about. Or describe someone whom you
Yeah,
admire.
yeah, you don't.
And um, you'll have 1 minute to prepare. And in that minute, just like at the beginning of the writing exam, each section of the writing exam, you're going to sit there and take some notes and go, oh, I know, it's this person. And what are some really good details that I can talk about this person? Write down things that you might forget while you're talking. If you write down the details that you want to talk about, especially making it personal, then while you're talking, you can focus on your grammar because you already know what you're going to say. That's the key to the best marks in the second section. And there's another secret that makes it even easier. And that is, some people say, oh, I have to give a talk about this. No, tell me a story. If you tell a story, if you think of it as, oh, right, I know, I'll talk about this film that I saw as a child. And I remember we went to a drive-in and I was sitting in a car. So try and take a personal story. Um, if you can make it personal, if you can make it personal, then you will use more language than you even are aware that you have. The more personal the language you use, the more personal the story you tell. Bits of English you didn't even know you absorbed when you were reading or listening to someone, you'll you'll use them. I promise. This really works. There's neurology. There's, I've got the science to back me up on this statement as well. If you make it personal, you'll use more grammar and more vocabulary than even you are aware that you know. All right. So the last part of the speaking exam is a broader discussion. So you're going to take that topic. Maybe it's about, if we're still talking about films. Should governments give ratings to films? Do you think that animated films are good for children? What kinds of films do you think are the best for children to see? That sort of thing. You know, taking whatever that topic is and talking about it in a broader world as it affects society in general. And this gives you a chance to use all sorts of great conditional statements. Well, if there were more positive role models in children's films, perhaps children would not behave so badly in the future. All right. So look at that construction. all of a sudden we've got this big, I've been required to make this big, complex, compound sentence talking about the past and the future at the same time. So listening to the examiner's questions will be your key to getting the highest possible marks in the speaking exam. All right. So, any questions? That's all for, oh, right, sorry, there are 4 criteria for the speaking exam. Once again, fluency, can you continue talking and speak at a natural rate without too many pauses? Is your vocabulary sufficient to talk about the things that you are asked? Can you make complex, compound sentences? Can you use conditionals? All of these. And now, there is a mark for pronunciation, but I want you to know there is not a mark for accent. Notice, pronunciation doesn't say anything about accent. Your accent is yours, and that's fine. Can you speak clearly? That's the key. All right. So I'm going to put the WhatsApp group up one more time because you can also contact me there if you want to check your clarity in your speech. If we want to practice a bit, we can meet up one-on-one and practice that. And I could give you some ideas if there's anything that is making you difficult to understand. I'll be able to help you with that. Okay, so don't be afraid to contact me over that. There's also my email address attached to on several of these slides as well. Well, then, to build, well, this is where building your vocabulary comes in as very important. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of things. In fact, we've got enough time to look at some resources now. There is one other, yeah, so let's look at some resources. Yeah, I'll pop to there, but we're going to shift to this one. So this is one of my absolute favorite places for building vocabulary, all right? Because you get the pronunciation for it, you get the context for it, and you get some really interesting new vocabulary. This is BBC 6-Minute English. Yes, I will put the link up right now. There we go. So, BBC Learning English, 6-Minute English. All of the Learning English sections are fantastic. Click on some of the other headings, and you'll find even more. All right, but this one is fabulous for learning new vocabulary because we need to talk about all sorts of things. Well, here's a special one. Lots of questions on the IELTS exam talk about technology. It's a frequent subject because it's current. All right, so if I click on this, all right, we get, so this is tech that refuses to die. I wonder what that means. What do you think from this image, right? Now, there's a worksheet that goes along with this. And so actually, we've got time. I'm just going to go through this so everyone can see. I really recommend this. I will be putting articles up on the WhatsApp group. I I will put an exercise onto the WhatsApp group every day. It might be one of these. It might be a puzzle. It might be a News in Levels article. So to build your vocabulary, come to 6-Minute English and find a topic you've not talked about before. Okay, so let's see what we can learn about technology. Oh, as you scroll down, you get, there's a question involved. There's vocabulary that is involved, definitions, and there is a transcript of the talk. So let's go there and see what we can learn.
6-Minute English
from bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello, this is 6-Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Phil.
And I'm Georgie.
The exciting thing about technology is that it's always changing. Can you remember when computer floppy disks, handheld Game Boys and fax machines were in fashion? Do you still have a Walkman cassette player from the 1980s?
Today, technology progresses so quickly that old tech soon becomes obsolete, no longer in use, having been replaced by something better or more fashionable.
So, you might be surprised to hear that until recently the government of Japan still used 3.5-inch floppy disks to store official documents. That around the world, music cassettes and Walkmans are making a comeback. And that even the world-famous Swiss CERN physics laboratory uses old-fashioned magnetic tape reels to record its data.
Yes, it seems that some old technology just refuses to die. Maybe because people still love it, or maybe because of the old English proverb, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, meaning that things should only be changed if they don't work. So in this programme, we'll be hearing about old tech which continues to be used today. And as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary as well.
But first, I have a question for you, Georgie. Computers have seen some of the biggest advances in technology, but what was the name of the first computer developed for home use in the UK? Was it A, the Commodore 64, B, the Sinclair ZX80, or C, the BBC Micro?
I'll guess it was the Commodore 64.
OK, Georgie, we'll find out if that's the correct answer later in the programme. One reason for not updating tech is if the original design still works well. NASA engineer Jonathan Sauder designed Harvey, a mechanical rover able to survive the inhospitable conditions on Venus, where temperatures reach 460 degrees Celsius. Here's Jonathan talking to BBC World Service programme Tech Life.
Venus has a very long night. It's actually about 60 days long that you're in total darkness. So that's where we came up with the concept for Harvey, a mechanical clockwork rover that could be powered by Venus's winds in order to allow it to survive Venus's long, hot nights.
Conditions on Venus mean that ordinary electronics simply won't work. That's why Jonathan built a clockwork rover, a machine with springs and wheels inside, which works when it's wound up with a key. Clockwork technology from the 1st century being used in 2024 by NASA.
Other tech which refuses to die is just too much trouble to change. For example, countries around the world use different electrical plugs which would be better to standardise, but imagine the work involved. Here, Chris Vallance, presenter of BBC World Service's Tech Life, discusses a similar example with Dr. Tacey Phillipson, science curator at the National Museum of Scotland.
Another piece of tech that people say has sort of refused to die is the QWERTY keyboard, the layout of keyboards that we all have, and it's perhaps not the most efficient layout in terms of the speed of typing.
It's the layout we're all really, really used to, though. And if you see court reporters, stenographers, they have special keyboards and can type so fast to take down verbatim. But they also look very complicated, and I don't actually want to learn to use one of those. So I'll stick with QWERTY for the moment.
Chris and Tacey discussed QWERTY, the traditional typewriter arrangement of keys on a computer keyboard in which the top line begins with the letters Q, W, E, R, T, and Y. In terms of being able to type quickly, QWERTY isn't the best. In fact, court reporters type much faster with alternative keyboards. Court reporters need to type fast to record cases verbatim, using exactly the same words that were originally spoken.
But because everyone is used to QWERTY keyboards, the tech lives on. That's why Tacey says she'll stick with QWERTY. She'll continue using it and not change to something else. And speaking of QWERTY keyboards has reminded me of my question, Georgie.
Yes, you asked me the name of the first home computer released in the UK, and I guessed it was the Commodore 64.
Which was the wrong answer, I'm afraid. In fact, the UK's first home computer was the Sinclair ZX80, which was released in 1980 and used a whopping 4 kilobyte memory. That's about half an email. Okay, it's time to recap the vocabulary we've learnt in this programme, starting with obsolete, meaning no longer in use, having been replaced by something newer or better.
The idiom, if it ain't or isn't broke, don't fix it, is used to say that if something is working, there's no reason to try to change it.
Clockwork machinery uses metal springs and wheels which move when they're wound up with a key.
QWERTY refers to the traditional typewriter arrangement of keys in which the top line begins with the letters Q, W, E, R, T, and Y.
If you say something verbatim, you use exactly the same words that were originally used.
And finally, to stick with something means to continue using or doing it. Once again, our 6 minutes are up, but remember to join us again next time for more trending topics and useful vocabulary here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English
from bbclearningenglish.com.
Right. I hope that was interesting to you. I learned something new. I didn't know that they had a clockwork rover on Venus. That's fantastic. And here I'm going to show you the worksheet. So if you click on the worksheet, this is what you get. You on this particular one. So this is asking you to write out the vocabulary that you heard and anything that was new or surprising to you in this particular one. So it's really worth doing the worksheets on these. It will make sure that you not only heard used in context, new vocabulary, but that you have an exercise so that you remember it as well. That's the key. So then there's some quiz questions down here as well. Which old technology is used by the CERN physics laboratory in Switzerland? Do you remember? What did they say? So they talked about the CERN physics laboratory. I didn't know this one either. I learned a lot on this one. And it's okay. If you don't remember, yep, I got that one too. If you don't remember, go back and listen again. All right? Go back and listen again. Even if you did get the right answer, go back and listen again, because then you will retain the vocabulary even better. Okay? So, and let's see. What about the second one? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. What does that idiom mean? Do you remember? Which one of those? Yes, well done. Really good. Right, and what does QWERTY refer to? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And you know, that awkward, if you think that it's an awkward arrangement for the letters, it actually was in part built that way to slow down typists, because they were typing faster than the mechanical typewriter could record. Right. So if Brad has an amazing memory and can remember whole conversations, how does he remember them? If he remembers them word for word, which of those? Yes. Yes. Excellent. Good job. And which phrasal verb means to continue using or doing something? Which of these two phrasal verbs? Three. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, you guys are champs. Okay, last one. What's the meaning of obsolete? What does it mean? What is obsolete? There you go. Very good. Awesome. Well, I really hope that you will use this resource. Like I said, I hope you've seen how exciting it is. I mean, I just learned lots of stuff myself. So I do hope that you will give that a try. Now, Wilfred asked me a great question about how to develop your vocabulary. Here's my answer. The more of these you watch, the more of these, the broader your vocabulary will be, because that's what we're looking for. We don't know what subject they're going to ask. We can't memorize some information for this exam. So we need to be able to talk about all sorts of things. I'm curious about this one. What decides our taste? You might see a link to that on the WhatsApp group. Now, there's another important place. So as well as vocabulary, what else? Yes! Thank you, Nasima. You asked exactly the question I was about to answer. So how do we build our grammar? Well, there are some very, very good exercises that I can give you, but my favorite is English News in Levels. All right. Now, this is also available as an app on your phone. It's got terrible ads all over it, but it is free. So there's that. This one is also available as an app. You can read an article at 3 levels of grammar. Now, yes, I'm going to give you some grammar exercises to go to as well. If you use this, you will be able to read 3 different levels of vocabulary and grammar. So, let's see. Let's look at the highest treasure in the UK. What does it mean that there are 3 levels? Well, if we go to level 1, we will find the article written in simple sentences in the present tense. Okay? So a group of people finds 2,584 old silver coins in the ground. The coins have come from the time of the Norman conquest. Wow. So that is all in the present tense, and they are all in simple sentences. Let's see what level 2 does. Now we've got, in 2019, a group of medical detectorists found a hoard of 2,584 silver pennies from the time of the Norman conquest. Now look at that complex sentence. Where are the verbs in this sentence? There has to be one to make the sentence work. So this is my favorite game. Find the verbs. Okay. A group of metal detectorists found. When did they find it? Oh, that's in a little prepositional phrase at the beginning. In 2019. What did they find? Silver pennies. And what was interesting about them, they were, and here we have a prepositional phrase again, from the time of the Norman conquest. Do you see how we've got a more complex sentence there? Right. One more and then. And when you go to the third level, this is written in the same manner as a news article in a book, magazine, or newspaper. All right. And now we have an even more complex sentence. All right. We've got a hoard of 2,584 silver pennies from the Norman conquest period has been sold. So we're in the passive voice now. Has been sold for £4.3 million, making it the highest valued treasure ever found in the UK. Right. So now we're not talking about the finding, we're talking it has been sold is our verb. All right. Plus there's a comma here. Making it the highest value treasure is a compound or additional information. So here's a way to learn about new things and look at how English grammar becomes more complex. And the last thing I'm going to show you is, the British Council. And if you want to check your grammar, go to the grammar section and you can choose a level. And in each of these, you'll be able to find, are you unsure about when to use a, an, and the? Excellent. Let's get your articles right. All right. And so there's an explanation and then there'll be a quiz. So you can check to make sure that you are, whoops, just get rid of those. Anything that pops up, just ignore. If it asks you to register, you can register an email address, but it's not, if it asks you for money, you've gone down the wrong path. All of these are free. Sometimes the BBC wants you to register for the site, but that doesn't mean that you're buying a course. Okay, so there'll be a quiz about that grammar. And so this is definitely my favorite site for checking your grammar. And once again, these pop-ups are annoying, but ignore them. If you ignore them, everything's free. Don't worry. So I'll pop this link in as well. So there we go. Those are my three big favorite ways of building that grammar and vocabulary. All I can say is that the more you do, the better you'll be, and the more that will stick. But come to the WhatsApp group and tell us about what you've listened to. Tell us about the word you've learned. The more you use it, if you can make it personal, you'll remember it. All right. So we're now going to take a break. I'm going to pause. I'll go back to, there we are. And I want to go back to my, the exam skills. And here's the biggest skill The most important, yep, we're focusing on questions. Yes, we've got all of that to do. A long, deep breath will recharge your brain. There are fMRI images that show that when you feel anxious in an exam, it changes the blood flow in your brain. So that, oh my God, I can't think of anything feeling that you get is real. It's actually what the anxiety is doing to your brain. And the way to reset it, to bring the blood flow back to all those important higher functions of your brain, is a long, slow, deep breath. So take a big, deep breath before you listen to something new. Take a big, deep breath afterwards, too. Take a big, deep breath before you try a practice exam. And you will remember to do it when you are in the exam. Right. We're going to pause this here. And when we come back, we will be working on the English, on the reading exam. And there we go. Right, welcome back to the second part of day one, and we are looking at the reading exam. So here's the point where you are going to convince yourself that you don't need to read the documents. So let's go. So remember, there are 3 documents. There are 40 questions. You cannot read 3 documents and answer 40 questions in 60 minutes. However, you can read the questions and skim, scan, and survey the documents to find the answers. That you have time for. When you read the questions, you can predict many of the answers. Use the guide words, find the guide words in the questions so that you know what to look for when you go to that document. Skip the difficult questions, leave them to the end, and guess any of the questions that you cannot answer. And maths, science, statistics, oh, my favorite things. If you guess the same letter or number for all of your unknowns in the multiple choice, statistically, you will gain points. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. If you decide, okay, on this one, any question I don't know, I'm just going to guess A. If you guess A on all of them, some of them will be correct, and you will get extra points. So it's a funny little bit of statistics that works in your favor. So now, why do I say skip the difficult questions and leave them to the end? Well, for this reason. How many questions do you need to answer in order to get the mark you need? What's your mark? You can look at this chart and say, okay, well, actually, I need a 6.5 from my program. That's the excellent. Yes. So how many questions can I get wrong? Or skip or guess? Exactly 11. Look at that. Okay. So this is where you see the reality of it. Now, I have students who are going into foundation programs who only need a 5.5. For heaven's sakes, they can get half of them wrong. We only need to answer half the questions. If you're doing a foundation program and you only need that 5.5, you can get half of them wrong. So remember what I said about that big, deep breath. All right, relax. If that question's a little too hard and you see a question that's easier, answer the easy ones first. Then go back. And you can mark questions to return to even on the computer-based exam. So you can mark those questions that you want to go back to, that you think you might know, or at least you've got a good idea. And then, so easy questions first, hardest questions last. All right. And guess, because an empty space and a wrong answer are the same amount of points, 0. But if you actually manage to guess the right answer, you get an extra point. So you always win by guessing on this exam. All right. So there we are. Little bit easier. We don't need to answer all 40 questions, do we? Much easier. And we definitely don't need to read 3 documents. What do we need to do? Right. Well, there are different types of questions and there's slightly different strategies for each of these. I will give you some extra resources. There's a wonderful woman on YouTube. Her name is Asia. It's called Fast Track IELTS. I will be giving you the link later at the end. And her advice is fantastic. She's the only one out there who says basically the same things I do. So I've watched all of the, quite a lot of the YouTube tutors, and so that you don't have to. And I can point you towards Asia, who's got great videos, excellent advice, and some good opportunities to practice. So yes, there are different question types, roughly 11. It depends on how people break them down. Some people say there's 14. We're going to cover 4 of them today. And we're going to start with multiple choice. So our strategy, how are we going to read? And this is super important. Read the questions first. Find the subject of the document. My gosh, what do you mean? Yes, you'll be able to tell what the document is going to be about by reading the questions. Find the keywords in each question. What are you going to look for in the document? Summarize the questions and predict the answers. Why am I saying summarize the questions? What do you think? Why would I say summarize the question? When you summarize something, you describe what it's about. And you use synonyms. And synonyms are part of knowing words that fit together, words that mean the same thing, will raise your score on this exam. No, without any question. Okay? So, summarize the questions and predict the answers. We're going to work on that. Okay. Now go to the document and find the answers. Scan for the detailed information. Read the first and last sentences of paragraphs to get the gist of what it's about. And then, of course, guess. Never leave a question blank. So, let's see what summarizing a question means. Let's look at a question. Great. So, here are 2 multiple choice questions. The first one, and these are the 2 styles of multiple choice questions that you usually get. The first one is a straight question. Where is rice grown? Interesting. And what are our possible answers? Is rice grown everywhere? Is it grown almost everywhere? Or is it mainly grown on floodlands and coastal plains? Very interesting. So we're looking for areas, places where rice grows, where people plant rice. Ooh, what did I just do? I said, what places do people plant and grow rice? Okay, I put that in the chat. What places do people plant and grow rice? Have I used exactly the same words as the question? What vocabulary have I added? What have I thought? Okay. Do you see how I've changed the way I'm thinking about the question slightly? So planting, what are things, how do we tell where something is grown? Well, when something is grown, it's been planted. There are different, when we're answering where, we're talking about places, right? Countries, areas, right? These are the kinds of words that we might encounter in the document. Maybe it will say what area of the world grows the most rice. No, but if I'm thinking about synonyms, when you say where, what are you talking about? You're talking about places. All right? Exactly. So that's what I mean by summarizing a question. In 2002, rice fields covered about, okay, this is a sentence completion. All right, this is a sentence completion question. So one of these phrases will accurately complete this sentence. So what are our options? 1.5 million square miles of land, okay. 1.3 million square kilometers of land in China, or 1.5 million square kilometers of land in the world. Okay, so what are the problems? What are we really looking for? We're looking for a where. Is it going to be in the world or China? What's the where in this? We've got our time, we've got our date here. We're definitely going to be looking for that date. Oops. Let's try making that a color. Oh, there we go. And then is it going to be miles or kilometers? And which is the correct number? Okay. So what have we got to look for? Am I going to look for? If we're talking about China, what part of the world is China in? It's referred to as Asia, right? But it's more specific than that. So we'll see. All right. So what do we know? Somebody tell me what this article is about. Oops, there we go. What is this article about? What are we going to be reading? What's the subject? Yeah, exactly. So did we need to skim, scan, or read the article to know what the article is going to be about? No, we didn't. even with just these two questions. All right, we've still got lots of questions. We don't know what it's going to talk about, but we do know we need to know where rice is grown, and we need to find out how much area rice fields covered in 2002. Right? Shall we go look at the document? Are we ready? How quickly can we do this? So, okay. All right. Next question. There we are. See if you can find the answers. Are two words that indicate the answer to the first question. Can you find them? If you can, type them in the chat. So here's our, okay, we could say three words. So there's the answer to our first question, isn't it? Here's our reference to 2002. How quickly did you find this? Did you find our two answers? Now we've got grown practically everywhere. So which of these choices means grown practically everywhere? It's synonym time. You've got it. You've got it. No. Oh. So let's look at that again. And in case the practically didn't tell you. All right. So can A be right? Right. No. There we go. Yes. You've got it. So this is the skill that you need to build between now and the exam. Looking at those questions, knowing what to look for in the document. All right. Well done. Well done, Ellen. Good job. Good job. Any questions on that? Do you understand why B is the correct answer? I mean, yes, it is mainly on flooded lands and coastal plains, but they also talked about deserts too, didn't they? So it's everywhere except Antarctica. And practically everywhere is the same as almost everywhere. Okay. Yes, really good. Excellent. Oh, good job, everyone. Awesome. So this is the skill we're going to be working on. This is your challenge. So um, There we go. Let's look at another set of questions. So these are sentence completion sentences, questions. All right. So this is where the instructions become very important. Notice that it says choose no more than 2 words and or a number. Okay. That actually becomes really important. 2 words and or a number. So could you have a one-word answer? If it says no more than, right? No more than 2 words and or a number. So what are the options? It could be 1 word. It could be 2 words. It could be 2 words and a number. It could be 1 word and a number. Could it be 3 words? Could it be 3 words? No. Could it be could it be a word and 2 numbers? Could it be 1 word and 2 numbers? Yes, 2 words and 1 number is the maximum that you can write. And so these instructions become very important on the exam. So you do need to make sure that that you read those carefully and don't write 3 words. Okay. So, oh, and the other thing is articles count. Articles count. Oops, you know what? I've done a terrible thing. Oops. Look at these. The last time I used this example. All right. So let's get to the questions. So first of all, we need to find out what our article is going to be about. What is our article going to be about? Blank is the most recent strategy to tackle the problem of smoking. I think I found the beginning of our topic. The large numbers of new smokers particularly under 16s, makes certain that cigarette companies will always have blank. Okay. In some countries, packaging is the only method that cigarette companies have for blank. Okay. And packets are seen as being the blank in the cigarette industry. Right. So, what's our overall topic? What's our overall topic? Yes, cigarettes and smoking. Smoking. Excellent. And what is it? Yeah. Okay. So what we don't know is what is it that the cigarette companies are doing? All right. So we're definitely going to be looking for something that tackles the problem of smoking, right? So what do we mean by tackle the problem of smoking? Are we encouraging people to smoke or discouraging them from smoking? Remember, this is where summarizing those questions becomes in our skill. Discouraging, exactly. Yep. So, blank is the most recent strategy to stop people from smoking, to discourage them. Think about all the ways, what are the words that you can use to think about stopping people from smoking? Very good. Right. So the large number of new smokers, particularly under 16s, makes certain that cigarette companies will always have. What do you think? What would new smokers, right? Especially young ones. What do you think? Does that give a cigarette company? What are they trying to sell? What do cigarette companies do? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it will always have buyers. Exactly. We'll have money, profits, an audience. Excellent. Good job. In some countries, packaging is the only method that cigarette companies have for, I don't know, that could be anything. Any guesses? So, packaging. What is it about the packaging? So, we definitely need to look for information about packaging, don't we? And packets are seen as being, something. Okay. So, packets and packaging, what do they do? Right. So, what do you think? Do we have some keywords? So packets and packaging are used by the cigarette companies. So seen as being, okay? That means that's what they use them for, right? So once again, your ability to say, what does this question actually mean? All right. I put them back. Excellent. So shall we go see? Are we ready to look at the article? Do you know what you're scanning for? So we need a strategy to tackle the problem. We need a technique to stop people from smoking. We need to confirm what we already can tell is the answer for. We have an idea of what the answer will be for under 16s and how cigarette companies will always have a buyers. Exactly. In some countries, packaging is the only method they have for, what is it? What do they use those packages for? And how do they use them? Okay. Ready? Off we go. Right. I've underlined some guide words. Where are the words that we need? Last one. There are two correct answers for the last one. So this is one of those questions where there are two possible correct answers. They are both accurate. They will both be acceptable. And those are the two. All right. So this one was a little harder, but hopefully you found them. So in the first one, the war against smoking is a synonym of tackling the problem of smoking, right? And what is being used? Plain packaging. Ah. I'll just type it. Plain packaging. Remember, we can only use two words. All right. So once again, we've got our keywords, new smokers under 16s. So I found the under 16s. And what does that help ensure? What does that guarantee the companies? Viable market. Viable market. Right? There's our two words. Very good. And once again, on the next one, remember, it's in some countries, packaging is the only methods, that cigarette companies have for pack remains, the last vehicle for promotion. So only method, vehicle for, the only method for promotion. Right. And last of all, they have become known as, so remember our question was packets are seen as being synonymous with they have become known as, and either of these two would be correct. you would just use one of those. All right. Okay, so either one would work. You could put silent salesman, and that would also be correct. So there you go. What do you think? So we looked at the questions, we thought about the questions, we summarized the questions. Did we spend too much time on these? Oh, yes. Do we need to go faster? Yes, we do. Will we get faster the more we practice? Oh, yes, you will. All right. That's what the practice is for. Okay. So, let's see. The next thing, yeah, we can do. We have time for one more. It's kind of. Let me instead take you to a couple of other places. So there's another one of these for you to work on here. And so you can practice this next one, which, in fact, two, because there's a matching headings questions, and there is a true false not given. But we're running low on time, so I want to make sure we have time to show you a few more resources. So one very important resource is not up here. So let me get it there. There we go. And there's a, let's practice. There we go. So I will, there is a link to this file, and these are a set of practice exams. Yes, the answers are there, but don't read the answers first. So here's the reading practice. There are 6 of them. So if you click into one of these, you will see that there's a reading section and with questions. So which part are you going to read first?
Question.
Thank you. So read the questions. Guess what the passage is about. Take a few guesses at some of the questions. See if you can predict what the answers you will find. Try paraphrasing the questions. All right. And, but you should be, so this, there'll be a link to this file. There we go. Oh, let's try that again. It went too far. No, this wrong one. There we go. Now let's practice. Right. And so there are also, as you see, practice listening tests, and the audios for those are on here as well. So, there are 6 of these, and then I can find more if you need them. So, so that link is on my resources page here, which should be, oh, yeah, that's the other stuff. That's on the resources page up at the top. Yeah, it's the second, third, fourth page. So my IELTS resources are right there. So you should be able to find those there. Right. And I will pop that into the chat as well. If you have that link, you should be able to get to those files. Oops. We don't want to know. Oh, maybe that link is wrong. But I'll make sure the link is correct. And let me just go over here and get the link to, yeah. Copy link. There we go. This is the one you need. I have no idea why it's saying the browser version is no longer supported, but hey ho. That is the correct link to this file, so don't worry about it. It will go there. So we've got lots of things to do. We've got lots of resources to use, lots of places to practice. Don't forget. That's it's the best way to practice studying for this exam. There's loads of resources for you. If you've got any questions, you can ask me here and now. And otherwise, let's see. Oh, right, that was the other one I wanted to show you. I wanted to make sure that I showed you Asia's marvelous guide to the reading exam. So she has playlists for everything, as you see. So if you go into her playlists, there's writing task 1, writing task 2, the listening, and where's her guide to the reading? Am I not seeing it? Oops. All right. Well, if you look for her, oh, there we go. Fast Track to IELTS Reading. So there's the playlist for the reading exam. She really is lovely, and her advice is correct. There have been many of them who just say things that are not helpful or give advice that is actually not ideal. So I can guarantee you that the advice she gives is excellent. So if you want another thing to watch, maybe on your phone while you're traveling, you want to just get some ideas, but there's also, she has some practice as well. Okay, so there's some practice available on her site as well. Okay, so lots of ways to practice. She's got advice on all the different heading types. And there's one other trainer that I will send you to for the reading only. I don't like her, I'm not keen on her advice for the writing exam, but her reading exam advice is excellent. And most of my examples I have gotten from her site. So her examples are really good. So you can go through the question types here, and she's got samples for each of them. All right. So if I go through here, what I'll do is I'll just give you this one again. And there we are. So this is all the different question types. And there's a practice lesson for each of them. All right, so there's practice questions for each of them. So you can carry on the work we've been doing today, reading some of those questions, predicting the answers, then reading the document. And that will give you a chance to practice a lot. So, do you have any questions at this point? Yeah. There we go. And thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you next week. We will be working on the listening and task 1 of the writing exam.